Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. Yes, I know the lighting situation might look a little different, a little weird, but the show goes on because this is Billboard Breakdown. This is one of those oddly deceptive weeks that you occasionally see on the Hot 100. Yes, I will have plenty of things to say about our new number one, but the big story out there is masking what would mostly seem an otherwise static week, especially in our top 40. But if you look a little closer and deeper and beyond a pretty sparse list of new arrivals, you'll see that there's a fair bit coming still downstream. Maybe not as many gains as last week, but a significant list all the same that does show an interesting shift in the horizon and one that deserves some attention. But before we get to that, we need to talk about our top 10, and yes, that new number one, and the first for both of these artists, as much as it's probably not that deserved. And just like the last number one, it got there by being a meme to notch its success. Because it's not like our frontmen or our guest star got there by being interesting in their own right. Yep, folks, Bad and Boujee by Migos featuring Lil Uzi Vert, riding huge streaming and solid sales right to the top. Now, there's a lot of factors to consider here. For one, it was a very narrow victory, and given the huge momentum behind the new tracks from Ed Sheeran that'll impact the charts next week, I think that its time in the spotlight will be very short-lived. And that's good, because for the life of me, I have no idea why anyone likes this. I'm no Migos fan, I like Lil Uzi Vert even less, but this cheap keyboard lining as the flattened guitar lurking in the haze of trap snares and sub-bass and the standard triplet flows, this is nothing that Migos haven't been doing for the past 4 years, at least. And the content and delivery isn't even over the top or fun, and Lil Uzi Vert can't even get that right. At least Black Beatles by Ray Shremmer featuring Gucci Mane pushed back to number 2 as it slipped on sales on YouTube despite a modest streaming recovery. It at least had some distinctive character and groove in the production. I can almost get behind the pseudo goth rock vibe that it had. Next up we got is Closer by the Chainsmokers featuring Halsey, which actually rebounded up to number 3 as it held on to its airplay and picked up modest boosts in streaming and sales. And I'm not pleased that this pushed Starboy by The Weeknd and Daft Punk down to number 4, which is still solid, but just getting edged out in the margins here. Now this takes us to the continued strengths of 24 Karat Magic, which held on to number 5 on a big sales rebound, and its airplay somehow compensating for weaker streaming. Then we got 2 songs that picked up position thanks to Juju on That Beat dropping out of the top 10, thank God. The first being with Side to Side by Ariana Grande featuring Nicki Minaj at number 6, picking up a little bit of streaming to compensate for some weaker sales, actually being a decent song. The second song being Awful with Don't Wanna Know by Maroon 5 featuring Kendrick Lamar going up to number 7 on pretty much just airplay at this point. It's sticking around for pretty much that and that only. Then we get Let Me Love You by DJ Snake and Justin Bieber, taking a sales loss but not enough to drop lower than number 8. Fake Love by Drake, which also lost sales but more than enough streaming and airplay gains to compensate, as if we wanted that. And then re-entering the top 10, Bad Things by Machine Gun Kelly and Camila Cabello, with huge airplay gains to compensate for uncertain sales and streaming, which I can only hope cripples this song from going higher, as I'm really coming to actively dislike this song. But on that topic are losers and dropouts, and here's the thing, there weren't that many at all this week. Beyond the rest of the Christmas songs and the songs paying tribute to George Michael, the only really big dropout this week was Pick Up the Phone by Young Thug, Travis Scott, and Quavo. It had already been around for a while anyways. And if you look towards our losses, we only really had 3. Immortals by J. Cole dropping hard to 82, My Shit by A Boogie with the Hoodie down to 96, and Hallelujah by Pentatonix falling really hard to 84 as they rotate out the Christmas songs. Frankly, I'm surprised it lasted this long. Now where things get interesting are in the gains and returning entries, and let's start off the latter. I'm mostly ambivalent on Congratulations by Post Malone featuring Quavo returning to 90, and Key to the Streets by YFN Lukey featuring Migos and Trouble rebounding to 97. Neither song are all that good, but they're here because of the success of Migos finally going to number 1 and people looking to hear more from them. This sort of thing happens. Now the surprise for me came with We Know the Way by Opatea Foi and Lin-Manuel Miranda returning to 98. Most because it's representative of Moana as a whole doing surprisingly well on the Hot 100 right now. Hell, if you look to the gains, Alessia Cara's version of How Far I'll Go actually picked up to 58. It's below the original one, but I'm surprised this is gaining at all. But what surprised me is that a lot of our gains look pretty promising as a whole. Yeah, there are still some really bad songs gaining traction. Play That Song by Train up to 68 and Make Me Cry by Noah Cyrus and Labyrinth up to 55. None of that is good. But beyond that, well, first we got our returning entries gaining some traction, and while I don't really like Sex With Me by Rihanna up to 83, 80s Mercedes by Maren Morris isn't a bad pop song to go to 74, and Parachute by Chris Stapleton up to 78, that's flat out awesome. Then there's the new arrivals, and look, Shaky Shaky by Daddy Yankee is horrendously stupid at 88, and See in Red by Dustin Lynch really should be better than it is up to 69, but seeing I Spy by Kyle and Lil Yachty go to 62, and especially Way Down We Go by Khalil up to 85, that's ultimately still a positive in my book. And sure, I'm not exactly thrilled that Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur is continuing up to 37. It's an obvious Ed Sheeran ripoff. Hopefully Ed Sheeran will push him off the charts. But contrast that with Hand Clap by Fits in the Tantrums, also continuing to rise up to 56. Sure, it's a blatant sellout, but it's a pop song and does stick in the memory. It's not bad. And then you got the songs that, sure, they aren't great, but they're far from being bad either. I would listen to them on the radio. Like Rockabye Surpassing All My Expectations by Clean Bandit, Sean Paul and Anne-Marie up to 61, or Chantilly by Shakira and Maluma surging up to 50 on tremendously huge YouTube, or Better Man by Little Big Town, which despite its very real problems is thriving at 44, or that Alone song by Marshmello picking up a bit to 72. I don't know, folks, I get a hard time feeling bad about some of these songs rising up. It'll be interesting to see which of them actually hold on to their traction, but since we have a sparse list of new arrivals, let's bring back an old feature from last year, the world hit. Now, I went through a pile of charts, and right now the biggest track that seems to be dominating is Rockabye, which, yeah, I've already talked about it. The next big one is that Human song by Rag & Bone Man, which I considered, but you know, I prefer my Hozier ripoffs to have slightly sharper writing or a rock edge, or at least production that doesn't feel so obviously formulaic. But then on the UK charts, I saw Touch by Little Mix, and I considered just raving about that again for a few minutes, but I think I'll save that for when it crosses over to the United States, and make no mistake, that should be coming. So, you know what? In the end, I decided to go back to the Canadian charts and find a song that's definitely got some major momentum from an album that I absolutely adored, and the song really deserves a lot more attention.
I've been deep in this sleeplessness, I don't know why, just can't get away from myself. When I get back on my feet, I'll blow this open wide and carry me home in good health, screaming. Who do you love? 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 Who do you love?
Okay, say it with me, folks. The Canadian charts are always better. Not only has Starboy sat at #1 over here for a few weeks, and we've mostly kept Drake's Fake Love out of the top 10, hell, Bad and Boujee hasn't even got to the top 10 yet, we have this song, a fresh cut from my favorite album of 2015 that's got real momentum and also happens to be awesome, and it's not even the best track from Astoria. And the funny thing is that Marianas Trench making it work by sticking with pop rock tropes and just doing them better in the modern day. The low shifts of guitar, the textured percussion that relies on the deeper snares and a great roiling groove, the well-balanced xylophone and piano anchoring a lot of the melody, and, of course, a vocal hook that's straight from the tradition of pub sing-alongs and being ridiculously catchy. And yeah, a huge part of it is Josh Ramsey's fantastic vocal layering that doesn't neglect the low end, but it's also a song that embraces a hopeful swell that doesn't shy away from acknowledging in the lyrics that, yeah, he went down hard, but he's gonna get his shit together and make the choice to move on with his life going forward and actually make some hard choices. And sure, within the context of the album, you understand that he's speaking about his failed engagement. But here, it's abstract but well structured and witty enough to work as a killer single on its own. You don't need to know that added context. Yeah, I could probably pick another 4 or 5 songs from that album that I'd personally prefer to get big, like the title track, or Wildfire, or Dearly Departed, or End of an Era. But you know what? As a single, this track gets the huge emotive swell that's always anchored killer hits from Marianas Trench, like Desperate Measures or Fallout or Beside You. And while I know this will probably never cross over to the United States, their label's always been crap at promoting them south of the border, I'll take what I can get here, because this song really is something special. I'm so happy it's doing well. But now on to the list proper. Number 100, Water by Ugly God.
I pull up and fuck on your daughter. I drip in your bitch like water. I splash on your bitch with the water. I feel like I'm 21 Savage. I pull up and fuck on your daughter. Water, 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 okay, water, water, drip, water, splash, water. I drip in your bitch like water. I splash on your bitch with the water. Water, 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 water.
So here's another case of the hype completely not backing up anything that's remotely interesting or fun. In other words, we have another completely forgettable rapper, this time from Indiana, who's somehow notching a hit off of a fragment of a song. Seriously, it's a hook that's repeated once in one verse. It barely even sounds Finnish, and yet apparently this guy, Ugly God, is the internet's favorite rapper? Yeah, somehow I don't buy it, because this is pretty damn generic and forgettable. At least at the heights of Lil B's popularity, he tapped into a borderline outsider artist style that could conceivably hook in internet culture as a whole. Ugly God, though? Desaturated synth at the back of the mix and against your standard sandy hi-hat until the thicker bass comes in a delivery that I'm not sure that I can remotely pick this out of a lineup. And the content, well, he's all about stealing your girl that he'll make his slave and screwing lesbians as he calls himself a dyke. But really, if you want a sign of how forgettable this ultimately is, besides pissing me off, considering that he's referencing 21 Savage and Lil Yachty in order to gain cred. I'm sorry, that's seriously weak. I'd say to skip this, but what's more likely is that you'll forget this exists. Number 95, The Weeknd by Brantley Gilbert. You know, there's a part of me that finds it weird that Brantley Gilbert is still charting songs in 2017. I mean, there's still traces of bro country around, but his brand of undiluted alpha bro non-singing almost seems like a relic of trends that died 3 years ago. And yet, he's got an album dropping in less than a week that I've got no requests for, which this is the first song I've heard from it. And seriously, we still doing this? Generic checklist lyrics about weekend partying, these really sour minor key melodies make it clear that nobody's having any fun. Electric guitars crushed into a slurry, a solo that's nowhere close to impressive, fake percussion sneaking into the mix because of course you gotta have that, and Brantley Gilbert's fried rasp of a voice so sloppily mixed that it isn't built any sort of significant or driving hook. Hell, outside of the content, I have a hard time calling this a country song instead of bad southern rock. So okay, Brantley Gilbert, if you want to play in that territory, you gotta get used to Whiskey Myers and Blackberry Smoke running circles around you, but frankly, the way country's trending towards actual quality in the neo-traditional or indie scene these days, I don't really see it sticking around. And really, good riddance. Number 94, I Got You by Bebe Rexha. You know, for as much as I've heard about Bebe Rexha, I've never really had the opportunity to discuss her as a solo artist. Most because over the past few years, she's been more of a behind-the-scenes co-writer, or at the very least a featured vocalist that brought in to punch up a song. And for a while, let's be very honest here, she's one of the big reasons why Me, Myself, and I with G-Eazy wasn't insufferable. She was the best part of that song. Or that In the Name of Love helped Martin Garrix stick around a little longer. Again, best part of that song. Or that Hey Mama by David Guetta and Nicki Minaj wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. She was, again, quite good there. So I guess I should not be all that surprised that she's finally got her own single to chart after No Broken Hearts and Nicki Minaj went nowhere. And honestly, as much as I think Bebe Rexha is an expressive singer as she tries to delve deeper into her paramour's deeper thoughts and vulnerabilities, this production does not flatter her at all. Why the hell do those vocals sound so compressed and weedy along with the synth, and maybe the flattened percussion that could have a decent groove, but the mix is allowed to open up and show some real swell here? It really sounds alarmingly cheap, and the fact that the debut album is planned for January makes it clear that the label does not have a lot of faith in it. And with the single, I kind of get why, because this could have been a lot better. And overall for Bebe Rexha, I think she deserves better. So yeah, disappointing. Number 93, Beibs in the Trap by Travis Scott featuring Nav.
I with a white hole and she snorting 3 lines like Adidas. Got a black girl rolling off Molly. Got a white bitch snoring out snow. Said she want real niggas in the party. Parents gon' leave the keys to the condo. Bitch, close the door. The shit on your nose. She said she want more. She said she want more. So I'ma get more. Yeah, I'ma get more.
Okay, so apparently I enjoyed that most recent Travis Scott album, Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight, more than seemingly everybody else. But instead of actually releasing by far the best song through Late Night with Kid Cudi, we get Beibs in the Trap, which, yeah, wasn't really my favorite there. Travis Scott's staccato flow, it doesn't nearly have the swell or groove to do a lot here. His rhyming with words themselves really feels stilted, and considering Nav handles both the hook and a verse, it really doesn't have that as much to make it feel distinctive as a Travis Scott song, besides the central conceit of Justin Bieber's name representing cocaine that a slew of white girls are railing. So of course they have to get more cocaine, trying to find whatever money they can to pay for it as he calls his own accountant and can't get service in the mountains. It's all against this twinkling synth that hints, that glitches in and out against this fizzy bass hit with hints of gloss around the edges. Honestly, there's just not a lot to it beyond capturing that zonked out party vibe that around people who are doing way too many drugs. And that honestly doesn't do a lot for me. I've been around it, it's not all that fun. It's not a bad song per se, but it's definitely not one I'd come back to, so I guess I'll give it a pass, but only barely. And finally, number 92, Sober Saturday Night by Chris Young featuring Vince Gill.
Ain't no whiskey strong enough to make things right. I'm just getting over another sober Saturday night.
So no joke, I literally forgot that Chris Young collaborated with Vince Gill on his 2015 album I'm Coming Over, which is mostly because despite really liking Chris Young, I completely forgot the majority of that album. It was so formless and generic, did nothing for me. I'm not really surprised though that this was the next big single from that album. It actually's got some steel guitar to it, which means it might actually have a shot at landing on modern country radio given how that's trending as I described before. But man, why did you waste Vince Gill like this? Not only does the writing do nothing to show off his presence, like Think of You with Cassidy Pope, which proves that this could have actually happened, but the production basically shoves Vince Gill behind Chris Young's baritone so that you can barely even hear him. Granted, I'm not entirely wild on the production as a whole. The sparse acoustic strums are supposed to represent the ticking of a clock against the piano line, which is a nifty choice against the thicker bass guitar, but again, I think I like the song more for what it could have been rather than what it really is, as the explosive climax really doesn't come through that well, despite Chris Young's pretty powerful delivery, and that leads to a bit of a mismatch with a lot of the content. It's a song about being so wrecked by a breakup that he looks hungover when the fact he didn't even drink, he was sober on a Saturday night, and that's a pretty potent scene, but I get the feeling Understatement might have made this song connect more deeply, or to maybe just go all out with the pain and sadness, go for melodrama. That could have worked too with Chris Young's delivery. This song feels kind of like a half measure in between those two ideas, and along with feeling really underwritten, especially on that second verse, it doesn't really stick with me. But you know what? In comparison with the rest of our new arrivals, yeah, it's best of the week. It's at least a song I could see myself mostly liking to give it a pass somewhere down the road. Even though I haven't really re-listened to it after reviewing that album, it's not a bad song. In fact, it's actually pretty decent. But worst of the week, that's easy. The Weekend by Brantley Gilbert. Less because of the posturing and utterly pathetic delivery and the fact that he's still trying to make bro country happen in early 2017, but the production seems even more slapdash and badly layered than usual, which absolutely blows my mind. He's got a budget and money behind him. I don't know why it sounds this bad. You know, I'm gonna take consolation in Marianas Trench on the Canadian charts, and that our gains this week look a little bit promising. So we'll see what happens. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.